Hey there, fabulous. Welcome to Your Marketing Mentor, the entrepreneur podcast where passion meets strategy and authenticity fuels growth. I'm your host, Sherry Sutton, your business growth guide, marketing mentor, and biggest cheerleader on this incredible journey of creating a purposeful and profitable business. Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your business to new heights, you're in the right place. With nearly 30 years of experience in strategic omnichannel marketing, I'm here to help you uncover your unique voice, build a profitable business, and make a real impact in the world. In each episode, we'll dive into personalized marketing strategies, authentic content creation, and the complex yet rewarding path of entrepreneurship. Expect practical advice, inspiring stories, and expert interviews, all designed to empower you to show up confidently as the face of your brand. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get ready to create a legacy together, one that not only makes money, but also a difference. You got this, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. All right, let's dive in. Have you ever sat down to write copy and your mind just totally goes blank, right? Whether it's, let's say, a blog for your website, or it's you're trying to do a reel or a video for your YouTube channel, or write an email and you're like, what? I kind of generally know what I want to say, but how do I structure this thing, right? I know for me, if you just give me a blank piece of paper, I just go blank, right? Or a blank computer screen. I just go blank. And so I need a structure for my content that helps me to write it in a way that's very simple. So that's exactly what this training is designed to do. This is based on years of research and looking at some of the best personal brands and how they approach their audiences and grow their following and get the most engagement on their social media. And it's really not just for personal brands, but for all brands, all kind of use this same methodology. So, all right, I'm going to put my slides on the screen and we will get going. All right. So this is my simple formula for driving sales. One of the interesting things, I did a little research on why are people get so stuck on writing, right? I know I'm one of those people, as I said earlier, and I did a little bit of research. 42% of small business owners feel that just marketing in general is their biggest challenge. And in part, largely the creative part, right? Including writing or content creation, right? What the heck am I going to say when I do this post or this reel or this email? What am I going to say? It's 42% of people find it super stressful. I'm sure some of you listening to this today feel the exact same way. The other piece is just a fear of rejection or producing kind of inferior content really gives people a fear of not wanting to create any content, not wanting to do any writing. And that came from the Content Marketing Institute. And so we see that this fear of creating content, of not doing it right, is overwhelming and people end up not doing it at all. Or it's just, we're so scared that we're going to be rejected or that people aren't going to like our content that we get into kind of analysis paralysis. So I hope that this training and this podcast is really going to help you understand exactly how to structure your content and make it a lot easier for you. The first thing I want to say, though, is it all starts with your strategy. So you have to have a very clear marketing strategy for your business. This includes who am I talking to? A very clear idea of who your target audience is. And your target audience can't just be, every single person on the planet. That's not a target audience, right? Who is the niche that you're going after? What do they need? How do you solve that need? And how can you communicate to them in a way that lets them know that you're the person to solve that need, right? What makes you unique? And then what are the activities that you can do to reach those people? What makes the most sense for you in your business? You have to start with that piece before you even start. I wouldn't even start writing anything, right? Whether it's an email or a blog post, I wouldn't do anything until I absolutely understood my strategy inside and out, exactly who I'm talking to and what they're struggling with. And if this is something that you don't have yet, it's my superpower. I work with clients all the time to help them take kind of their overall business idea and really narrow it down into a concrete marketing strategy. So start with the strategy first. Okay, now you're ready to start creating content. Again, this can be used whether you're creating a reel, a blog, an email, during a speech in public, any of those things. This 4-part formula can work. So I'm going to give you a little overview. The first thing you want to do in your content is to state the customer's problem. The second thing you want to do is show empathy. The third thing you want to do is advise them on how to solve the problem. And the fourth thing you want to do is invite them to engage. Now, you actually saw me do the first 2 pieces already in this podcast. So I started the podcast with stating the customer's problem or your problem, which is, hey, do you feel overwhelmed by writing content? Does your mind go blank when you know that you need to create something? That was me stating the problem from your perspective. And it's not just what I think, it's that came from talking to clients and talking to small business owners all day long on what the biggest challenge is. So that first thing is stating the customer's problem. And you saw me do that at the very beginning of this podcast. And I did it through a question. We're going to talk about that more here in a minute. The second thing I did was to show empathy. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. We're going to talk about those in detail here in a minute. But the way that I showed empathy was by sharing some research with you, right? From 42% of entrepreneurs feel overwhelmed, right? I showed empathy by doing that, as well as sharing the fact that it is a struggle for me as well. Now, what I'm starting to do is I'm giving you, number 3, advice on how to solve the problem. We're going to spend more time on that here in a moment. And then at the end, I'm going to do an invitation to engage, and I'll kind of share with you a little bit more about what that means. All right, let's move forward. So the first thing you need to do is to state your customer's problem. And it feels sometimes like, well, why do I need to do that, right? They know their problem. I know their problem. Let's just get to the solution. But often we forget to really say what we solve. If we go right to the solution, we sometimes miss the opportunity to connect with our audience. So by saying, do you feel this way? Are you struggling with this? Is this something that's coming up for you? It gives us an opportunity not only to kind of set the stage for this piece of content by saying what we're going to be talking about, but it also allows us to create an emotional connection with our audience by showing that we understand them, right? We hear them, we understand them. And I actually do this in the form of a question. So I'll often say, do you feel this way, right? Do you feel overwhelmed with the idea of writing content? That's a question that I might ask at the very beginning of this. And not saying it from my perspective, but from your perspective as my client. Do you feel this way? And anybody who's running a small business talks to people all day long about what their challenges are. All you need to do is flip that around. Do you feel this way? I've heard that you feel this way, right? And that's stating the customer's problem from their perspective. So now that you've done that, you can move on to part 2, which is to show empathy. So you've created an emotional connection with people by showing them that you understand what they struggle with. You understand where they're at. The second thing you want to do is show empathy, because now that they've created that connection, but now they're feeling a little, could be feeling a little bit vulnerable. So you want to show empathy. And there's 3 ways that you can do that. The first way is to share your own personal experience. I did that in the beginning part of this podcast where I said, I feel like that too, right? Sometimes you give me a blank piece of paper and I'm completely overwhelmed. And that was me sharing my personal insight, right? Showing empathy that I have that same challenge too. The second thing that you can do is to show industry data. I did that as well at the beginning of this podcast, where I showed you and told you about industry data that, supported the fact that people struggle with this, as we all do. The third thing that you can do to show empathy is you can share your professional experiences. So let's say you haven't found any good research on it, or maybe you don't have any personal experience, but to show your professional experience. So that could be something like, my clients struggle with this all the time, or you can even tell a story. I had a client in my office the other day, and we were talking about this, and they were sharing how they really struggle with this. So you're not alone. It's something that I hear on a regular basis. So those three ways of showing empathy: one is sharing your personal experience, two is sharing industry data, and three is sharing your professional experience. Those are all great ways to show empathy. So now you've, one, stated the challenge from the customer's perspective. Two, you've shown empathy. And now the third thing you want to do is to give them advice on how to solve their problem. And on this podcast, we're in that section right now. I am giving you advice on how to solve the problem of knowing how to write pieces of content. So in this third section, you want to give people advice. So you want to give them, how they should think, what they should do next, right? Because sometimes it's not maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4, do this, 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 and this. Sometimes it's like, hey, reframe your mind. So tell them how you think they should think about the topic, the things that they should do. I like to keep it to 3 points, four at the most. This is four. This podcast is four, but it made more sense from the structure perspective. So I didn't want to cram it all into three. I felt like four was the right, but three is generally the best guideline. So if you're going to give someone advice on how to solve things, three is always the magic number. And one word of caution: the answer to their problem can't always be "you're screwed unless you call me." I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes, that's when we get into that, slimy, salesy, weirdo marketing territory. And anyone who listens to my podcast doesn't want to feel like that sleazy, spammy, weirdo salesperson. And that actually happens in this advice section, where you say, hey, are you feeling this way? And then you give them a little empathy, saying, yeah, I get it. And then you say, well, the only answer is to call me and give me a whole bunch of money. Don't do that. Give them some advice on how they can move forward, at least somewhat on their own, without having to call you. You want to create a relationship with people where they know that you are the go-to for this industry. Don't give away the farm, right? Because that's something you are gonna charge for, but it's okay to give them little pieces of advice along the way. I'm doing that right now with this. What I have to offer my clients is so much more than this, that I'm fine giving away a little bit of free content. And you should have that same kind of perspective. You want to be genuinely helpful and supportive, and that will make sure that you're building trust and authority in your content, as opposed to just being, again, kind of that slimy weirdo who's like, yeah, you have this problem, you have to call me. You have this problem, you have to call me. It gives people a little bit of advice so that they can build a trusted relationship with you over time. So that's your third section. Our fourth section is what I call an invitation to engage. And no, it's not that kind of engagement. So we're not talking about the big diamond ring kind of engagement here. What I use this invitation to engage instead of what many marketers call like a call to action. And the reason why is you don't always want to ask people, to buy from you or download something from you, because again, that's where we can get into that slimy weirdo salesperson territory that most people don't want in their marketing. So I like to think of it as an invitation to engage. And so sometimes, sure, that's set up a consult, download my freebie, but many other times it's write in the comments below how you feel about this. Share your experiences, right? If you have any questions, let me know. I would only give them one choice in this section. So you want to, as you're creating content, sometimes be asking them for two-way dialogue. Again, things like leave a comment below, put an emoji below, that type of thing. And do that some of the time, and then other times ask them to download a freebie, and maybe other times it's come to my seminar. Or what I do quite a bit is like DM me if you have any questions, right? Or DM me if you're confused, because I don't want to always be like buy my thing, set up a consult, download my freebie. I want to also be someone that is just seen as a guide and as a support. And I think that's true of really probably anyone who's listening to this, especially my coaches and my consultants, right? You want to be seen as an industry leader. And industry leaders aren't always saying like, you just have to buy from me. They're asking people to engage with them in other kinds of ways. So to recap, we're going to do 4 different sections. And those 4 sections are: 1, you're going to state the customer's problem from their perspective. 2, you're going to show empathy. 3, you're going to advise them on how to solve their problem. And 4 is an invitation to engage. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of how this would actually work in 2 different industries. So the first industry is a realtor. I have a lot of clients who are realtors. So this is how that might go. So I'm going to read you the full post. In this case, it's probably a social media post. You could be the audio for a reel, right? The script for a reel, or it could just be the text that you're writing. So I'm going to read the full thing to you, and then we'll analyze it. Should you pre-qualify for a mortgage? This is a very common question for new home buyers. The answer is yes. Getting pre-qualified allows you to blah, blah, blah. Not a mortgage person, so I don't know the answer. I recently put together a webinar on the process. It's easier than you think. DM me for the details. Okay, so in this case, it's a very simplistic example, but it's a great example of how you might structure, let's say in this case, a social media post. So 1, state the problem from the customer's perspective. So, should you pre-qualify for a mortgage? As a realtor, this is a question that they get asked all the time. You are surrounded by these questions all day long. So again, what's the problem? Should you pre-qualify for a mortgage? And I literally just say exactly that in the copy. The second part is to show some empathy. In this case, this is a very common question for new home buyers. Third, you want to give them some advice. So in this case, I said, the answer is yes. Getting pre-qualified allows you to, and maybe put in 3 different bullet points. Then 4 is your invitation to engage. I recently put together a webinar on the process. It's easier than you think. DM me for the details. So I'm going to read that all together again now. Keep an ear out for those 4 different sections. Should you pre-qualify for a mortgage? This is a very common question for new home buyers. The answer is yes. Getting pre-qualified allows you to tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. I recently put together a webinar on the process. It's easier than you think. DM me for the details. Okay, so that's one example. I'm going to go to a second example now, and this is for a life coach. So I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we'll break it down piece by piece. So, are you feeling overwhelmed, like there just aren't enough hours in the day? I hear this from my clients all the time. Studies show that 40% of people feel they don't have enough time to do everything they want to do. Here are 5 tips for gaining an hour each day. Tip 1, tip 2, tip 3, tip 4, tip 5, 3, 5, whatever. My time management journal is a great way to track these tips. There's a link in my bio. So let's break that down into the 4 sections we talked about. The first section is state the challenge from the customer's perspective. And in this case, the life coach did it this way. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Like there just aren't enough hours in the day? Man, who doesn't feel that way? 2 is to show empathy. And in this case, the life coach could say something like, I hear this from my clients all the time. Studies show that 40% of people feel that they don't have enough time to do everything that they want to do. The third section is giving advice on how to solve the problem. So here are a couple of tips for gaining an hour each day. Then you can put the tips. The fourth section is an invitation to engage. And in that instance, a life coach could say something like, my time management journal is a great way to track these tips. There's a link in my bio. So these are really good examples of how to pull all of this together for a couple of different industries. I hope that this was really valuable for you as you're thinking about how to create your content. I know it can be really overwhelming when you're just sitting there with a blank screen, or you got your phone up and you're like, I'm ready to write, I'm ready to do reels. And you're like, what the heck do I say? It can be significantly easier than you think. Think about all of the questions that you get throughout your day, and then just answer those using this 4-part formula. And again, it works whether you're creating long form videos, short videos like reels, blogs, emails, any types of content that you might create. If you use this methodology, not only will it be easier for you because you're starting from a place of things you know, which is questions from your clients because you hear them all day long, and then sharing your expertise, it makes creating content so much easier. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Your Marketing Mentor. I'm here anytime you have any questions. You can find me on all of the social places. And if you have any other topics that you'd like for me to do in future podcasts, please let me know. Have a great day. Mwah. And that's a wrap of today's episode of Your Marketing Mentor. I hope you found some valuable insights and feel inspired to take action in your business. Remember, you have the power to create a purposeful and profitable business. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your feedback helps me create content that truly serves you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and fellow entrepreneurs. Let's spread the love and help more mission-driven businesses thrive. Stay connected to me on social media and visit my website for more resources, tips, and support. I'm here to walk alongside you every step of the way. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep shining and keep growing.